Fill her up.
You're listening to the Gas Digital Network.
What do you want to do with your life? I want to talk.
Welcome to this week's I Want to Talk from Sao Paulo, Brazil. I'm on tour down here in South America. Been doing shows in Peru, Brazil. I'm going to go to, I think, Argentina, Chile. I could be wrong about Argentina. It doesn't really, it seems like it is a big deal, but to me, it's where I do what I do doesn't really matter. It's just performing for an audience of people who've come to see me do a show. So the where is problematic or is an issue only when it comes to logistics, having flight times and traveling and things like that. But once I'm there, beyond that, it's just another audience. And I don't mean just another audience like they're all just, it's an audience. I mean, like, it's an audience, and wherever I go in the world, they're fans of mine, thankfully, and hopefully, and they want to see me rock, for lack of a better word. So I'm here doing that, and I have no access, as I said, to guests, or I'm not doing festivals or anything like that. So each week now I've just been talking, and I go by now I'm going by social media. I'm going by Twitter, and I'm going by what people are responding to and reacting to and what's happening. And as usual, it's always rock. It's related to, connected to something, I guess what you know me for best. And in some capacity, I hope I'm becoming some sort of a spokesperson for rock and roll, especially heavy metal rock and roll. And I don't know. I mean, but, maybe I've already been a spokesperson. I like to think I am a spokesperson. Yet there's those who, just tear apart anything I say for some reason, thinking I lack credibility. Their reasons for my lack of credibility are the band I'm from, the music I've created, the lack of depth of my catalog. I'm going by, and I don't really read the trolls. I'm going to give you a little lesson, okay? My Twitter feed, my social media world is lovely. Lovely. All this talk about, online hate, the haters, no hate, all that talk, I don't deal in that world at all. Because the minute it enters my world, it's banished. It's called blocking. The minute I get a tweet, I block it. They're no longer part of my world. I don't read it. I don't feed on it. Especially, I'm not talking about the real haters, the real assholes, the real pieces of shit out there. Okay? I mean, a challenge or a question or something like that, or someone challenging my position on something, I'll as long as they're being civil about it or expressing an opinion, I'll respond to it, debate it, argue it, or whatever. But the minute it crosses the line, gone. I've had this is just an ode to blocking people. I have had the same cell phone number since I think early 90s. So about 25 years, more than 25 years. The same cell phone number. Many of my peers, celebrity peers, rock star peers, their numbers are constantly changing. And when I've asked them, or when I get the new phone number from them or whatever, I'll say, why did you change your number? Oh, some fans got my phone number. And I'll be like, well, how do you know they got your phone number? Well, I pick up a phone, they get a call, and it's a fan, like, hassling me. I go, you got caller ID, right? Why did you answer the call? When I get plenty of calls from unrecognized phone numbers, I do not answer them, ever. Anybody I want to talk to is in my contacts list, and their name comes up on the screen. If a number comes up that I do not recognize, and you know what? I don't even know if it's always fans, because I know there's a lot of telemarketers. Telemarketers, too. They don't bother me at all. I don't answer. Look at the phone. Don't know that number. Click. Decline. I don't get angry about it. I don't react to it. I don't register it. I don't think about it. Beyond, don't know that number. Click. The idea of changing your cell phone number to so that fans don't call you, it's idiotic. And wrestling, I'm pointing to my computer over there. Wrestling, arguing with social media trolls, with the haters, with the ugly people out there. It doesn't register. Like, okay, I've learned that Blabbermouth, which posts a lot of articles about me. And I don't know, a lot of magazines and websites post articles about me, but I know that Blabbermouth, the articles are totally legitimate, totally fair. They never take a cheap shot. Yet I quickly learned that if you go to the comments, there are just people just there to assault. These losers are just sitting there just attacking everything. And I just read a few of them the first time, laughed. Okay, I get it. That's the Blabbermouth, reader, or at least the Blabbermouth, commenter. And I don't read them anymore. Go to sleep. I sleep nice. No aggravation, no freaking out, no stamping my feet, no tantrums. Because there's some pussies, an old term, but I still use it, assholes out there who in the dark talk. I've dealt with these people in concert situations. I used to really deal with them a lot more back in the old days. And it was great then. Because when you got these haters in the crowd, in the club days and the bar days, it stopped pretty much after we hit the big time. Most famously, I called out the entire audience at the Reading Festival in 1982. But you could respond. A heckler says something, you could say something back. You can address it at the moment. And if it escalates, you can deal with it at the moment. You're dealing with ghosts on social media. Just losers sitting in the dark, spouting. And you can't, it's like, it's impossible to fight them. So block, don't look, turn away, turn it off, don't answer. These are the solutions to so many of your problems. And you know why? I know why. There are people who respond and get really upset. And I'm not just talking about celebrities. I'm talking about regular, I hate the term regular people, but I'm talking about just people in general who are very reactionary. I spent some time in therapy. So this is one of the things I learned in therapy. And what I learned is that day in and day out, we struggle with the uncontrollable elements in life. We fight the good fight every day. So at work, at school, whatever we do, we are up against things that we don't have control of. And we have to figure it out. We have to sort it out. We have to make our way through. This is life. But there are certain things in our lives that we feel we should at least be able to control these situations. And that's why people will come home from a hard day fighting the good fight and lash out at the people around them for ridiculous things. My dad used to lose his shit if dinner was not on the table. 5 o'clock, that was dinner time. And my shrink explained to me, it wasn't just talking about my dad, but my dad was a perfect example. He says, it's just like for my dad, he was a cop. He worked 2 jobs, he sold insurance on the side. He worked really hard supporting a family of 8, and I love him and I respect him. But, when you're a cop and you're dealing in a world of, a lot of problems and bad guys, the shit's out of your control. Yeah, as a police officer, it's your job to control it, but still, you don't want to be dealing with the criminal element. It's happening. It has to be dealt with. It's an X factor. Selling insurance, you're doing good when you're selling. You're doing bad when you're not selling. You have to go out and try to sell. So if you're selling, you're doing good. If you're not selling, you're not providing. So my dad would be greatly affected by his workload. And he'd walk in the house. And in his brain, whether it was conscious or unconscious, dinner wasn't on the table. With all the fucking shit, this is not what he's thinking. He has to deal with it. Dinner can be on the table. That I can control. And so you get this big, ridiculous overreaction. And people dealing with shit, and we all do. Life is degrees of how much shit you're dealing with. It's all, it's a work in progress. I think that people hyper-focus on these little indignities, like some troll on the internet or some derogatory comment on Twitter, and overreact. Hyper-focus. I've got to take all this shit from these people all day long. At work, I'm not taking shit from this asshole, and they go after it. You got to let it go. You got to let that shit go because it's just adding to your aggravation. But that isn't what I came here to talk about. So I figured today, I like looking at the social media over the past week or so, there's been an ongoing discussion in my world on heavy metal, the origins of heavy metal, where heavy metal's from. Who's metal, who's not metal. I spoke about Queen a few weeks ago, saying that they were a metal band or had metal leanings. And it actually became a news article in multiple papers, Dee Snider, And then recently there was an actual legit article that wasn't just based on tweets, That wasn't just based on tweets. And it wasn't about me. It was a guy hyper-analyzing Queen's music and Queen's career and saying that he called them the godfathers of metal. And that's been argued. I didn't say they were the godfathers, fathers. I just said they were metal influenced, or they were a metal band, or had metallic leanings. And then that discussion in itself erupted, and there was a bigger discussion just about the origins of metal and where it comes from. And I was going to talk about that at length. And I guess I'm already talking about that. But then another subject, rock-oriented, popped up today and yesterday and became like the focus. And it started with somebody who tweeted the Hard Rock cafes and said, why do you focus so much on pop, hip-hop, non-rock, let alone non-hard rock? And some droid, I assume they're millennials, spouted company line at this person. Like, we try to be, recognize music in all its, I can't remember what they said, but, and put the devil horns at the end, metal horns, like, oh, well, but then what you said must be true because you put the metal horns at the end. And I just dove in. And I said, who is this idiot? It's a millennial spouting who wasn't even around, doesn't even know the origins of the hard rock, has come to work in the publicity department on social media, and they decided to respond and make some corporate statement about, accepting all music and the unification of blah, 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 and metal horns, So I dove in, tore him a new one. That became a thing and it started popping up in articles online. Dee Snider attacks the hard rock. And so now the subject has moved from metal, which is certainly, I consider myself a true authority on heavy metal, on the oranges of metal. Being the age I am, I was a part of the birth of heavy metal. And I've done this past few, and I've done a lot more analysis, like, on myself, self-analysis, like why, people were saying, why are you reacting so strongly to this hard rock cafe thing? Why does this bother you so much that they don't represent hard rock? And hard rock, for those who don't know, is what metal was originally called. Hard rock begat metal. Okay? It started with bands like Cream. And it even goes before that. It just started to have, like, the Beatles would have a helter-skelter moment. Edgier moment. This was the beginnings of hard rock. When the bands, when the Stones, when these 60s band, the Kinks, very much, the Who, would have these heavier moments, harder moments. And then bands, that begat bands that just focused on that. Like just that part of the Beatles, Stones, Kinks, Who, and all those Dave Clark 5, the more aggressive moments. Bands started up that were just playing, I say just, because in the 60s and the 70s, bands didn't ever just play heavy stuff. Nobody did. An album mixed, you had these really heavy, hard tracks, and then you would have like an acoustic track. Zeppelin is one of the great examples, their albums, putting, Immigrant Song and Brony or Stomp on the same record. But that was the time. So, but Hendrix, Cream, these bands, they had the harder edge. And then you get Deep Purple coming out in the late 60s, the original Deep Purple. It started getting edgier. And it started becoming more and more focused. And bands, I was reading a book by Dennis Dunaway from Alice Cooper. Really good book. So Snakes, Guillotines, and it's a weird title, but it's his autobiography about the Alice Cooper days. And I consider Alice Cooper to be one of the more pushing the boundaries of hard rock, which begat heavy metal. I'm going to keep saying begat a lot. And he was saying that it was an amplification thing, that the amps were getting bigger and people wanted bigger amps. So, and the amps were making the music louder and harder. It was amplifying what was being played. And this was case in point. And this is something, again, you have to be old enough to have been around for. So many bands were much harder and louder in concert, much heavier. Jethro Tull, who I consider to be a hard rock band, live, much heavier, because the stuff was being played through like Marshall Stacks, the amp that Jimi Hendrix made famous. That became the standard. And the Celestion speakers that were in a Marshall stack, they distorted at a certain volume. They weren't very good speakers. So all of a sudden, distortion became part of hard rock. Before the amp distortion, fuzz boxes were very popular. Fuzz boxes they called them fuzz boxes because they made the sound fuzzy. It made it distorted. Used a pedal. That went out the window once the amplifiers were being overdriven and the speakers were breaking up. Speaking of speakers breaking up, the Kinks, who were one of the early influencers in having a distorted sound, Dave Davies literally poked holes in the speaker cones so that they would distort, that they would break up and give it a raspier sound. The earliest days of distortion. So that had a growing appeal, that tone and the volume and the power. And these bands that leaned toward that, you weren't playing folk guitars and acoustic guitars. The sound got heavier and heavier and heavier. And I was trying to figure out when exactly the words heavy metal came into play. And I was thinking that in 1974, I was in a power trio, guitar, bass, drums, and me singing. And we did Zeppelin, we did Montrose, we did Slade, we did Queen, the heavy stuff. Like we did that's Stone Cold Crazy. We did I'm forgetting the song now. First album, Rock and Roll. But it was actually sang by Roger Meadows Taylor, but Freddie sang it live. But anyway, that we were doing this stuff, and I don't recall if in 1974 we were calling ourselves a heavy metal band yet. It really was just starting. The words were being bandied about. First times words used, legendarily, Born to Be Wild, Steppenwolf, hard rock band, playing louder, playing more aggressively. Even the statements they were making, things were harsher and harder. And in Born to Be Wild, heavy metal thunder. First time those words were put together like that, it was talking about motorcycles. But still, the words. Next time I recall, and this is a sense of pride for a band out of Brooklyn called Sir Lord Baltimore. Very heavy band, hard rock band, loud band, powerful band. Did I just blow up the powerful? Yeah, powerful. Watch those P's, D. They, in a review in Cream magazine, the reviewer, and who I don't think was using it as a compliment, even though Sir Lord Baltimore, which, by the way, one of the great band names, I think, took it as a compliment. It said, Sir Lord Baltimore uses every heavy metal trick in the book. That, to many, is the first documented use of the term heavy metal to describe a band's music. And if it wasn't the music, just saying every heavy metal trick in the book. But that Sir Lord Baltimore was around, I'm saying 1974 as well. I could be wrong. The first album was called, boy, I'm having a lot of brain farts today. I have to apologize for that. But lo and behold, anyway, I used to play Sir Lord Baltimore. Hard Rain Falling was one of the great songs. But here at 74, 75, that's when the words just started to be hyper-focused. So look who is making music well before that, the fathers of heavy metal, Black Sabbath. But nobody's calling it that. They're not calling it that. They formed Black Sabbath they wanted to be a jazz blues fusion band. This is a truth. There was a first name. One of the first names is it's a weird. There's something polka took band or something weird with the word polka in there, and then named after like some sort of medication. They were Earth. What a hippie name. We love you. You know, Ozzy's a hippie, man. They were hippies. We love you. They were Earth. Until across the street from the rehearsal studio, the theater was showing the Boris Karloff film from 1963. It was one of those old movie houses called Black Sabbath. And they saw the name. And the name also begat The Devil's Third, Iommi experimenting with that down, 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 which was banned in, I don't know exactly when it was banned, but in classical music times, those three notes were considered that they conjured the devil. Iommi heard about this and wrote a song around that. Down, 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 down. It was actually banned by the church. So he experimented with a song built around it, played that song. This is his words, not mine. In concert. It wasn't a concert. They were in the bars. And the reaction, he said, it affected people. Of all the music they were playing, they did this song and people were affected. I remember the first time I heard that song, album had just come out. I hadn't got the album yet. And I saw a high school band play it. And they turned all the lights off. In the theater, it was a battle of the bands, and they did Black Sabbath, and I was scared. It was very, oh God, please God help. There was nothing like it. And because they saw the reaction to Black Sabbath, the band went off and played off of that Devil's Third. So all of their songs started having that dun, 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 all that minor, you know, that they use that Devil's Third to launch their sound, which is one of the biggest inspirations for heavy metal. And of course, the other contender for the fathers of metal are Led Zeppelin. But none of these bands called themselves metal. It wasn't a word. They were hard rock. And in between their hard rock songs, listen, go to the early Sabbath albums. There's some bizarro fucking acoustic songs on there. Orchid. What was that doing in the album? It's not metal. But they weren't metal. They were a hard rock band. There was a band called Cactus. They had some of the, with Carmine Appice, Tim Bogert, both from the Vanilla Fudge. Unbelievable band. Heavy. Every other song was a stupid folk song like Bro Bill. Like, what the fuck is that? It's all that Woodstock hippie shit. Metal didn't start focusing until 75, 76. And one of the bands I'll say that focused it was Judas Priest. They embraced being metal and declared themselves metal. Somebody said they were part of the new wave of British heavy metal. Oh, no. They predate and begat the new wave. I like begat. The new wave of British heavy metal. They were before Maiden. They were inspiring Maiden. They were inspiring all of us. They were inspiring Twisted. They were inspiring Saxon. They were Judas Priest. One other aside, and this is a rambling conversation, I know, about metal, because I also want to talk about the hard rock thing that blew up on social media. But is Birmingham, England. Robert Plant and John Bonham were from Birmingham or the surrounding area, the Midlands, okay? Black Sabbath were from Birmingham, England. This is a steel town. This is a real, this is a blue-collar town. I think that speaks to it. Judas Priest were from Birmingham, England. So don't know exactly what was going on there, but you want to look for the birthplace of metal. It is Birmingham. And that is a heavy town. It is a heavy town. But historically, something was going on there. Some of the birth of metal truly comes from there. And the other, you look at other, of course, you've got, Iron Maiden. But Iron Maiden are now running with the ball. We're through. So is Twisted Sister. And there's people who deny Twisted Sister's metal, being a metal band. I get that shit. Because they don't know the band, They hear, we're not going to take it, I want to rock. And this is part of my upbringing of having albums with a varied sounds on them. I love the anthemic songs. I'm a big fan of rock anthems, as are, Kiss, for example. But people who say they're not, Twisted Sister was not a metal band, obviously never heard Under the Blade or Sin After Sin or Burn in Hell or Fire Still Burns. Don't know. We were metal. But yeah, we would break away and do more sing-along type songs, which were less metallic for sure. When I was coming up, that was acceptable. Somewhere, really, after starting with Twisted Sister and bands like us, you started to get fully defined by a couple of songs. And before that, you could play a variety of sounds, and still be considered defined, but you're defined by the album, not defined by the single. But Twisted Sister suffered because we were defined by the single. But I digress. So by 76, and you've got Iron Maiden forming in 76, Twisted Sister forming in 76. Bands were defining themselves as being heavy metal bands. We were no longer hard rock bands. We were heavy metal bands. Where do I want to go with this? Well, it kind of leads to the hard rock thing. I went off on the Hard Rock Cafe, and when it got into I don't want to say heated. It wasn't heated, and I applaud. And I said this. It was a discussion. I don't mind being disagreed with. Let's just keep it civil. This is what's fucking wrong with the world, that people can't have a discussion and can't agree to disagree, and can't have aha moments with each other. Can't say, whoa, you made a good point there, which I pride myself on. If someone makes a point, I am going to stop and check myself. I'm not going to argue for the sake of arguing. And there's too much of that going on in the world. People unwilling to accept somebody else's position on its merits. I'm not talking about blind stupidity, but I'm talking about when a person makes a point. And I pride myself on that. And I pride myself on my social media following, for the most part. Well, they get blocked if they don't. They talk and they discuss, and it is exchange. But some of the people who were challenging me about me being so upset that the Hard Rock Cafe, which was built on hard rock bands, the first guitar they got to hang in the Hard Rock Cafe in London was from Eric Clapton of Cream, followed by a guitar from, not to be outdone, Pete Townsend of The Who, another hard rock band. And these are the people who frequented the Hard Rock Cafe. It was called the Hard Rock Cafe because it was edgier. It wasn't called the Folk Music Cafe. It wasn't called the Pop Music Cafe. It was called Hard Rock. Hard rock was a thing. Over the years, the Hard Rock Cafe has gone mainstream and they've lost their origins. And you say, well, you know, you're going to be does it have to be metal? Does it have to be hard rock? It should be rock oriented. You know, and when you're listening to Rihanna and Madonna at the Hard Rock Cafe, and it reflects on the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame too. These people need their own Hall of Fame. It shouldn't be called rock and roll if it's not rock and roll. It should be a pop music Hall of Fame. Why not? It would have more people attending, and that's why. That's why. Because the Hard Rock Hall of Fame committee know that if they focus on a subgenre, on like a narrower segment of the rock population, that they will have less people watching the show. And it's all about television ratings, and it's all about money. It's all about money. It's not about the music. Don't let those elitist corporate assholes try to convince you otherwise. It's about the money. So I was railing against, okay, to tell you a little aside. I mean, all right, on a personal note, the Hard Rock Hotel in Orlando had a beautiful display case with vintage Twisted Sister costumes. And not only for the first time ever, they had Suzette, who designed the costumes, actually decorate the display case. And it was centered around the Come Out and Play era outfits. The costumes were in there. Pieces of a guitar from the era was in there, which was painted. That was very themed. Come Out and Play had a street graffiti theme going. So there was drums in there. It was a beautiful display case, and people it got a great reaction. Even if you didn't know the band, it was exciting to look at. After several years of the Twisted Sister display case, they changed it. All right, fair enough. I went down to the Hard Rock. You know what they changed it? They put some fucking DJs, literal pajamas. Pajamas. This DJ, one of the big ones, I'm sure, wears pajamas on stage. So instead of, forget it's my band. Forget that it's the 80s. Just something exciting to look at and different and colorful and that represented a certain period of time. It's now been replaced with a DJ's pajamas. That's not the Hard Rock. And that's what bugs the shit out of me. And clearly it bugs a lot of rockers out there that the Hard Rock, it made its name on rock and roll with an attitude, and now it's filled with pop music and DJs. But some of the people challenged me on my position. Like, why are you so anti other music? I said, I'm not anti other music. I love 50s. I love show tunes. I love R&B. I love doo-wop. I love blues. They don't belong in the Hard Rock. If you go to House of Blues or B.B. King's, you don't expect to hear a heavy metal band, do you? No. And if you go to Bob's Country Bunker, you don't expect to hear hip-hop. And if you go to a disco, you don't expect to hear country. So on every other music form, it's like their designation. Nobody expects spillover or crossover. Nobody's offended because at the country shows, you're not hearing hip-hop or R&B music. Why? Because it's a country show. It's ridiculous. But someone pressed me on why does... I just spoke about not reacting. I just spoke about not letting them get to you. And yet, this gets to me. Why? And it's really made me reflect and really made me think. And what I reflected on is that for me, heavy music was a home. It was where I was accepted by other people who liked heavy music. It's where I fit. And I didn't fit in. I was a weird outcast. I was good in sports. Didn't think the world was shaped like a football. I was smart, but not that smart to be hanging with the intellectuals. The freaks, we called them freaks back when I was in high school, who tended to be musicians and artists. I fit there, but I didn't do drugs or drink, so I didn't fit there. I like cars and motorcycles, but the idea of beating up kids and bullying people, which seemed to be a major pastime of what we called the dirtbags back then, I couldn't hang with the dirtbags. So I had like no home. Yet somewhere along the way, heavy metal, I found myself in heavy metal. I found my place. And I know I'm not the only one. I know that heavy metal, heavy music in general, and people, I want to recognize music is a home for a lot of people, and people find their home in different music, where they fit. I hate disco. Always have, always will. Shame on you, Kiss, for I was made for loving you. Got to always say that. But disco people, as well sort of shown in Saturday Night Fever, John Travolta played this kid working this crummy job with no real prospects. But when he went to the disco, he was home. It was a place where he fit. It was a place where what he did, how he looked, how he danced, whatever, it worked in that environment. He wouldn't fit in a rock club, his character. He wouldn't fit in a country bar. He did another movie, Urban Cowboy, which was all about sort of like a Saturday Night Fever for, guys, working stiffs who would go out to the country bars and ride the bull and be rock stars, for lack of a better word, in their environment. But there's another example, though. People find a home. And I realized that part of my passion for fighting for metal, fighting for heavy music, is that it accepted me. And it seems like, and again, unlike other music forms, for some reason, the other music forms feel like they can cherry pick what they like about heavy music and use it for themselves. That bothers me. That's why I reacted to the T-shirt thing. Let me just check this here. I guess I'm just checking the clock, people. Okay. That's why I reacted so strongly to the T-shirt thing. The pop community wearing metal T-shirts. No. And hip hop people calling themselves rock stars. No. Okay? No. And the hard rock and the like, using our phraseology, our imagery, our imagery, same thing. Image to define a club, location, concert venue, whatever these hard rocks have expanded, that includes all the other musics, and not only includes, but hyper focuses. They're way more into the pop music and the R&B music and the hip hop music and the DJs than they are into heavy music. Heavy music is not their forte. That's not what they're about. yet they built their chain on it. They'll continue to use, the horns to death. It's another one. Everybody throwing the horns. It's not yours. I had a website for years called Take Back the Horns because it was just aggravating. This symbol. And by the way, in the early days, we were mocked for our metal t-shirts, mocked for the horns, mocked for our imagery. Now it's like, oh, that's kind of cool because our music form looks like shit. So let's take what they've got. No. Do your thing, man. I have nothing against your music form. Okay, except disco. But I don't want to shut you down. Just stay the fuck away from me and my group and my family and my home. Metal, for many of us, is a way of life. And it's deeply personal. Now, by the way, if these other people want to enjoy metal, you're all welcome. Welcome. Come to the light or come to the darkness. Depends how you look at it. But come to the light. Be improved. Be enlightened. Have your mind expanded. Be freed. Metal is amazing for release of dark emotions. Metal is amazing. There's amazing catharsis in going to a metal show and listening to metal. You feel better. You feel happier. You feel a release. I don't know if these bands, these fans of other music get that same thing. Maybe they do. I don't know. But if you want to come and enjoy what we do, all are welcome. That's not the point. But I will make one other point before I say goodbye. Because now I got to start getting into show mode and this stretching and warming up and all this stuff like that goes on before a show. So I got to start heading into that now. But I've always fought for not only heavy metal and hard rock, but unity amongst metal fans. You can go back. I think very clear. I had this discussion very clearly. I was interviewing the Scorpions on Heavy Metal Mania in my gym that I had bought, and Klaus Meine was there, and I think Matthias Chabs, and I called them on. I had heard they had said some stuff about Twisted Sister and derogatory, and I, rather than be a pussy and I said, hey, man, I heard you said blank. And Klaus, who I'm friends with, by the way, said, we said nothing of the sort. That's bullshit. And, we have no problem with you guys. Fine. Cool. I asked them. I heard something. They told me no. But at that point, I said, there's too much infighting amongst the metal community. It's too factioned. There's so many it's like microbreweries. It's so many slices in this pie. And heavy metal, heavy music is just a slice in a pie of music. And if a pie has 8 slices, it's probably around that with country music, dance music, DJs, R&B, hip hop, whatever the breakdown is. And metal is a slice. Amongst ourselves, we fight for what is true metal. We attack and mock and ridicule the form of metal we don't like. It's not metal. It's not metal. It only weakens our position. Strength in numbers. Remember the warriors, Cyrus? Can you count, suckers? The future is ours if you can count. And his point was, the different local gangs fighting each other was weakening them when together they were a force. And this is not saying you have to like every kind of metal. You have to like every band. Just don't attack your own. And if you look at, what are popular metal bands, and you're saying they're not my own, they are. We've all got families. We've got extended families. And some of our family members we're really proud of. We admire. We look up to. Some family members we've got incredible relationships. We hang out with. We socialize with. And some of our extended family members are a bit of an embarrassment to the family. You know what I'm talking about. They're still your family. That's the point. So these festivals are weakened when they're marginalized and fractionalized and reduced to, it's a grindcore festival. Well, you know how many people are going to go to a grindcore festival? And I like grindcore. A few thousand. But a metal festival, it's tens of thousands. That's why you're whack-ins. And that's why you're bang your heads. And that's why your downloads are so massively attended. Because they'll have 5 stages. And they'll have a classic metal stage and a hardcore stage. And you know what? You don't got to go see all the bands. Just don't ridicule the other bands and the other fans. We're family. It should be a family. And we should stand together. You don't have to hang out. If that's an embarrassing cousin, you don't have to hang out with them. It's still your cousin. You can't deny your cousin. I'm preaching. I'm passionate about this. Because I love it. I love this music. Rob Halford said, it's like being in the Marines. Once a Marine, always a Marine. Once a headbanger, always a headbanger. And it is my saving grace. It is the music I still love. I'll love it to the day I die. And it has saved my fucking soul. And I know for a lot of you feel the same. So, if I get passionate about this, it's personal. It's personal. So forget everything I said about blocking. I'll block out everything, but don't fucking mess with metal. Until next time, I got to go play the metal right now. Bye.